In today's program, a beach shipwreck. Why did the crew of a tanker refuse to send out an SOS signal? Not enough money to buy a land plot on the moon? Don't worry though, you'll be able to buy a spot in an artificial queue at the border for just 200 hryvnias, $500, and we'll cut a deal. How a car driver tried to bribe border guards. A strong storm, fog, and icy water. The crew of the Delphi ship that had an emergency near the shores of Odessa had to be rescued from such difficult weather conditions. Border guards of the Southern Regional Office also took part in the operation. The tanker Delphi ran aground on a beach with a similar sounding name, Dolphin, just opposite from a Ukrainian border guard post. The old ship had no power and its crew were exhausted. A lifeboat tried to approach the Delphi several times, but to no avail. It was only courageous divers who managed to get all three people safely ashore, including the unconscious captain, by overcoming the huge waves. In the end, the rescuers got well-deserved applause and some hot tea at the border guard post. Great job, guys! The tragedy was avoided thanks to cooperation between several services. But there are still some unanswered questions. In particular, why did the team refuse to leave the ship until the very end? And why didn't the captain send out an SOS signal, despite the lethal danger? Besides, shortly before the ship was wrecked, the captain turned down an offer of assistance from border guards. Our Sea Guard patrol boat approached them and offered to take on board members of the crew who might have been suffering as a result of the storm. But the crew refused assistance and said that situation was already under control and that towboats were already on their way. We know how it all ended. There may be several reasons for such strange behavior. The first one is the lack of permission from the ship owner. After all, the Delphi sails under the Moldovan flag, and a special operation on a foreign ship is not cheap. According to another theory, the tanker was carrying contraband. The border guards refute that because a few days before the accident, a survey team had boarded the ship because it had been suspected of illegal activity. The special survey team of the Sea Guard boarded the ship and checked the information we had, but no border violations were found. The Delphi did in fact raise suspicions, but the tanker's location outside Ukraine's territorial waters limited the powers of Green Berets. Having found nothing forbidden, they only expressed their warnings, which they reported to the relevant authorities. And that is exactly what happened. Petroleum products were spilled into the Black Sea. According to the State Environmental Inspectorate, their permissible concentration was exceeded by 157 times. Even though the storm has long subsided, the upturned tanker is still floating near the pier. The owner promises to remove it from the shallows by the end of this year. But local activists believe that it is not enough and are demanding that the dangerous vessel be removed right now so it doesn't get worse. They're also demanding that the guilty be punished because someone has to be responsible for what happened. The term poker face is associated with card games. It is how they call the facial expression that hides the emotions of players. A true professional is impassive. There is no way you can tell whether or not he is bluffing. But it's not advisable to play such games with border guards. They undergo special training to be able to recognize criminals through their facial expressions and behavior. Is a traveler's eye twitching or hands trembling? Welcome to a thorough inspection. The driver, who was traveling from the occupied territories via the Hnutova checkpoint, was noticed immediately. The man was clearly anxious, and this attracted attention to him. But when his car was taken out of the queue, he went for broke and offered $500 to pass through without undergoing an inspection. The cause of the driver's anxiety came to light very quickly. It was these 560 packets of cigarettes with the excise stamps of the Luhansk People's Republic and Donetsk People's Republic. There was a reason why this man was nervous, and now he'll also have to be held accountable for bribing an official. Up next, not enough money to buy a land plot on the moon? Don't worry though, you'll be able to buy a spot in an artificial queue at the border for just 200 hryvnias. Back in the 1930s, writers Ilf and Petrov gave the main character of the novel The Little Golden Calf this famous phrase: "Personally, I have 400 relatively honest ways of stealing money." Advanced technology has opened up new horizons for today's big schemers. There are plenty of ways to make money out of thin air, from selling several acres of land on the moon to a sadistic website like Saving Toby. The owner of the latter demanded donations to keep his rabbit, whose name is Toby, alive. Otherwise, he threatened to eat him. Believe it or not, he received large sums of money. Our compatriots are also trying to keep up with trends. Air is being sold in Ukraine, both literally and figuratively. But there's nothing wrong with that. It's much worse when scammers start doing it. One such scam is the sale of places and vehicle queues at the state border. Earnings are guaranteed because there are big flows of travelers at borders with EU countries. But what if there are no queues? How do they make money then? Turns out, it's quite simple. Milova village in Luhansk is special. The easternmost Ukrainian settlement shares a street with the Russian town of Chertkovo. It is appropriately called Druzhby Narodov, or Friendship of Nations. In the current situation, it sounds hypocritical. Last year, Russian border guards installed this long fence, which is over 3 kilometers long, most likely purely down to feelings of friendship. Because of that, we had to move the checkpoint. Here's how it looks now. As you can see, there are usually no queues here. Local residents teamed up to fix this, in their opinion, awful misunderstanding. About 10 to 15 cars belonging to locals created an artificial queue, the places in which, according to our information, they're selling themselves. A job for slackers. Just sit in your car and wait for the next client. They didn't take much from unsuspecting tourists, just some 200 hryvnias. This simple scheme made them good profit, until border guards found this cluster of cars to be suspicious. Now look carefully, this is the artificial queue at the checkpoint. But when it starts being filmed, the cars quickly disappear. Within just a few seconds, there was no one left. What a mystery! Oh no, they're interfering in our work, is probably the first thing the organizer of the scam thought. As you know, attack is the best form of defense. So the man started making lots of calls to the State Border Guards helpline. He complained about outrage behavior. Operator number 2, how can I call you? My name is Sergey. I'm at the Milova checkpoint. Something strange is happening here. They took me to the checkpoint. I counted 25 cars there. And on a different day. Hello, operator. How can I call you? Operator 14. 14. I'm at the Milova checkpoint. Which one? Milova checkpoint in Luhansk region. Something weird is going on here. We were standing in a queue, then the staff changed shifts to the barrier. Talking to this one, I don't know what's going on there. The man got so carried away that he didn't even consider using a different phone or changing his voice. That's what got him caught. He introduced himself differently, either as Ivan or Sergey, but we figured out that it was the same person by his voice and phone number. So here's how he did it. He created a queue and sold places in it himself. And when border guards got involved, he called us first and said that it all took place with the alleged assistance of border guards. The identity of the owner of the velvet baritone voice has been determined. He's going to have to close up shop. And what will these guys do now? Perhaps work as taxi drivers?